Hi, everyone. Thank you for being here today. My name is Ranesh Kenaganayagam. I am on the product marketing team here at Affinity. My focus is on Affinity's extensions and apps, one of which is our newest, Affinity Meetings. Today, we're going to have a conversation about how you can keep deals on track with Affinity Meetings. Leading the conversation is going to be Andy Bryson, SVP of Product here at Affinity, and Chad Harding, Managing Partner at Peak Technology. So Peak Technology is an Affinity client using both Affinity CRM as well as our newest extension, Affinity Meetings. Peak is based out of the United States and specializes in helping tech companies raise and sell capital all across the world. So before the conversation gets started, I'm going to tell you a little bit more about Affinity Meetings. So we released this app earlier this summer, and it's our first app for a virtual meeting tool, allowing users to see important contextual information right from their Affinity CRM, right inside the panel of the Zoom interface. With Affinity Meetings, you can now see all the connections you and your firm share with any external person or organization participating in a Zoom call, as well as a timeline of events and emails you or anyone on your firm has sent or received from a meeting participant on the call. But the really interesting and exciting part is the tool is bi-directional. Not only are you able to read those activities and those connections, you're also able to read previously taken notes that your team has taken on meeting participants. But also you can contribute new deal intelligence or new relationship insights with the reply to historical notes or creating net new notes to get synced directly to the records of meeting participants in your Affinity CRM. And with that, I will pass it off to Andy to have this conversation with Chad. Go ahead, Andy.
Thank you, Ranesh. Chad, thanks for being here. It's great to be here. So meetings obviously play a big part of your business. Let's start by sort of talking about historically how meetings were part of your day-to-day work before the pandemic, how that's changed sort of during the global pandemic, and sort of what a day looks like.
Yeah, a lot has changed with the global pandemic. Pre-pandemic, meetings is the lifeblood of investment banking, and we would schedule as many meetings as possible, and a typical week might comprise of 20 or so meetings. It would be a mix of in-person and phone conversations, and obviously in-person would require travel, and depending on how far you go, that can knock out a day or two, and so there was a lot of downtime, and you tried to take calls in between, moving around a lot. 2020 was a busy week. With the global pandemic, we were all stranded at home, and the way that we interacted changed drastically. Zoom became a critical tool to interact, and with Zoom, which replaced phone calls and replaced travel, with Zoom, you were able to stack your schedule back to back to back, and it was not atypical to have 50 or 60 meetings a week. So you're able to do a lot more, meet a lot more people. The quality of the Zoom call is not quite as good as meeting in person, but it's certainly much more efficient, and it's a lot more effective than a phone call. I remember conference calls where you spent half of your effort just trying to figure out who was talking, and with Zoom you can see very easily, and you've got the information about you can read body language, but you can also see their name, and it just makes for a much more productive and effective meeting.
Yeah, and we all did that together. We all went home, we all started joining Zoom and video conferencing,
yes.
Which is great, because that meant we kind of figured out how to work together and transition as one. It also creates challenges. If you're doing 50, 60 meetings in a week, understanding context of each meeting it is a challenge.
Yes. Yeah.
Technology. How did you manage that?
Yeah, it was a struggle, right? Because as an individual, you're trying to keep track of it, and you're taking notes, and I've gone back and forth between a physical notepad and tracking notes on my computer. But those notes were usually locked in with, that was, it was difficult to share. And one thing that really helped us was we discovered Affinity and started using that as our relationship tool, and not just managing relationships, but really we used it to run our business. So we track all of our deals through Affinity. We track all of the contacts that we make for each deal, and we track our potential clients through Affinity. So much so that with my home office during the pandemic, I made sure I had 3 screens. One screen was dedicated to video conferences, to Zoom. Another one was dedicated to email, and the third screen was dedicated to Affinity. And I always had 4 tabs open at all times: our deals, our targets, our contacts for each of the deals, our prospects, and then one working window for just to look things up. So it was an efficiency tool, became critical to our business, and what it did is it unlocked the information that we were capturing through all of these meetings in a place that could be shared broadly across our organization. So it helped us stay coordinated.
Yeah, and we all learned to look at other screens like that as we were in meeting. A little less engagement directly with people in the meeting. As travel has started to become possible again, what has changed, and what challenges has that created now that we're accustomed to Zoom meetings?
So now that we're traveling, we can do in-person meetings, which is great. After not traveling for a year and a half, it was crazy how quickly you forget. And I had several trips where I'd leave my chargers at home, or just struggle with the rental cars or the hotel. But one of the challenges is you leave your 3 screens at home and you're traveling with just 1 screen. And now no longer do you have access to that information without leaving. So if you're doing a video conference and you can be present, or you can switch the screen and look up information and disengage to a degree. So one of the biggest challenges was just managing with less real estate, with just a single screen. And that's where Affinity Meetings really was a game changer for us, because it allowed you to be productive with just 1 screen. Because it's fully integrated into the Zoom window, you can access your previous conversations. You can take notes you capture important information, and it's automatically uploaded to Affinity. It's automatically shared with your organization. And that's really been a game changer. So it allows me to be present when I'm talking in a video conference, allows me to be just as productive when I'm on the road as when I'm home in my home office.
What's changed about how you capture or take notes now that this is possible within the context of the meeting?
Yeah, it's a powerful tool to be able to capture notes as you're in the meeting. For a while, I would, write notes in a notebook or on my iPad, and then I would later in the week have to enter all that information into Affinity, and literally I would spend a full afternoon on Fridays just capturing that information and getting organized and sort of closing out the week and preparing for the next week. And by now capturing the notes as they are, during the meeting, and taking some, writing up your takeaways and next steps, it's really given me back half an afternoon, a full afternoon every week, because all that is up to date and immediate, and that information is available to the team immediately. So they don't have to reach out to me and ask, what happened to that meeting. They can see directly.
They're no longer waiting for you to catch up on Friday, but instead can know what happened.
It's giving me back hours and hours to my week.
That's great. Thank you for sharing your thoughts on how you use your notes and how that's impacted. At this point, we're going to do a demo of the product, and Ranesh is going to walk everyone through what this looks like in practice. So Ranesh, take it away from here.
Thank you, Andy, and thank you, Chad, for that conversation. So we've been talking a lot about Affinity Meetings, and so I'll be walking through a demo of Affinity Meetings, how it functions and how it works. All right, so we're here in the marketing demo for Affinity Meetings. And to start, of course, you want to pop open your Affinity Meetings app. Opening up an app in Zoom is quite easy. You pop open the navigation bar, the one that we're all familiar with at this point, and you find apps. As soon as you click on that there, it pops open the Zoom apps right pane. This is where all of Zoom's apps live. For the purposes of this demo, I'm going to enlarge it. As you can see at the moment, all that we have installed is the Affinity Meetings Zoom app. Clicking on Affinity Meetings gets you into the Affinity Meetings app. When you click into Affinity Meetings, the first slide, the first page that you'll see are all of your external meetings for today and tomorrow. So I just want to confirm for the audience, we don't show internal meetings. So any meetings that you may have with your internal team, that won't show up in Affinity Meetings today. Right now, exclusively, we feature external meetings, primarily because we're featuring relationship information and intelligence, and what we currently store in your Affinity CRM are information about your external relationships with people and organizations. So turning to this, as you can see, you see a list of all of the meetings that you may have scheduled in your Google Calendar or your Outlook calendar for today as well as tomorrow. So I'm going to show you what it looks like in when you're looking at the connections tab for a meeting. So in this fake meeting, we have an introduction call with Cornell. You'll see that we have notes on attendees. So this will be made up of all the notes that your firm has taken about anyone at Cornell, whether they're in this meeting or not. Next, you'll see external companies and attendees, so the folks or the organizations that have been invited to that meeting. In this specific instance, we have Cornell University as the organization, and then we have Chandra Ritchie as the attendee from Cornell. As well, we do show you what other attendees you have from your organization. In this instance, I'm the only person from my team that's joining for this call, so it just says my name. But if I had a couple of colleagues joining me, their names would be listed as well as their job titles. So let's kind of dive into the connections portion. So let's start with the organization. So if I clicked on Cornell University, you get two columns. The first one that you see are connections. The connections that you see on the left side here, though they're ordered by whether I know them first and then anyone that my allies know. So for me at Cornell University, I only know one person, Chandra Ritchie. I have a pretty good relationship, 65 out of 100. This is again based off of the volume of emails and meetings that we've had in the past, the recency. And so that's the strength of my relationship. But next up shows you all of the people on my team at my firm who have a relationship with someone at Cornell University. Again, these are folks who may not be on the call. And so an interesting use case here is if you're meeting someone for the first time, you may want to know who else you can get an introduction to at a firm. So if you find out that there's someone else on your team that has a relationship with a company that you're meeting with, that kind of lets you know that you can expand your sphere of influence with that organization. So as you can see, 65 people that my allies know, and they all have to have really strong relationships with them. Next is the activities. Activities here are all calendar invites. This is a demo instance, but you can filter all of the activities by received emails, by sent emails, as well as meetings. So let's go back and take a little bit of a look at how you would take a note or view notes that have been taken about meeting attendees. So for this one, we have a different meeting setup, sharing deal terms. You'll see that there's already notes that exist for the attendees. There's 25 of them. You can see that right there. If I click into that, I can see all of the notes that my team has taken about anyone that's joining the meeting from an external standpoint. If I go back, I can see those external organizations, again, connections, activities. And I can also see Elsa, who's the only attendee. We don't have any major connections, so this is probably looking like an intro call, activities. So say I want to take a note about Elsa or Gladon as the organization. I pop down to this button right here, this blue button with a note, and I go back and I click on create a new note, choose the meeting. The meeting that we're in right now is sharing deal terms. And I can write something as Elsa joined us for another demo. Hi, everyone. The cool thing about this as well is these aren't just raw text. You have a rich fields. You could expand the size of your text. You can bold, italicize, underline. You could put things into bullet notes. You can provide a numbered list, and then you click publish. Boom. And so now let's kind of confirm that that note has arrived in the Affinity CRM for Elsa's profile. So everyone's kind of familiar on this call with what a profile looks like for a contact or an account inside Affinity. So here is Elsa's profile. This is our history of interactions. This is similar to the history of interaction that you'll see on Affinity Meetings. But first, let's see if that note has come through. So let's click refresh. Elsa joined us for another demo. Hi, everyone. So that kind of confirms that, I've taken a note about Elsa. I was able to pay attention to her during our call, but I was able to take notes about what we talked about, maybe potential meeting takeaways, next steps for my team, just so that I can make sure that my team is using the same takeaways that I had during a meeting, which means that any next moves that they make when it comes to Elsa or the Gladon organization, they can make sure that they're working from the freshest information. So I'm going to close that note. I'm going to go back here, and that's that. And that's Affinity Meetings. Yeah. So that was the demo of Affinity Meetings. But with that, I just wanted to share with everyone on the call that, we know that deal work doesn't all happen inside the CRM. In fact, that conversation between Andy and Chad really outlined that it happens almost everywhere else but the CRM. The CRM is where you record that information. That's where your information is available. But the work around deals, around opportunities, around relationships, they happen in your inbox, inside a website, inside LinkedIn, and of course inside your meetings. So we know this, and we're continuing to invest. So please stay tuned, because we're bringing relationship intelligence across your entire deal making tool set, and we've got a lot more coming on the way. So finally, just a reminder to everyone on the call, if you've got a premium or enterprise account, you have access to Affinity Meetings. All you've got to do is just go over to the Zoom app marketplace, search Affinity, and it's right there for you to download and install. If you are on a professional account or are someone who hasn't yet started with Affinity, please reach out to your CSM or email support@affinity.co to learn more about getting Affinity Meetings in a premium or enterprise subscription. Finally, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you to Chad for joining Andy and I in this conversation today about how you can power your meetings with relationship intelligence. And with that, goodbye.
Thank you, Chad.